Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Pcap live stream experience. Happy to be with you. There may be a little extra noise in the background. I hope you don't mind. If you do, too bad. Very sorry, but my daughter is on her daily classroom Zoom call with her third grade class, and I think they're supposed to have a dance party. Now they're behind my green screen, but obviously their audio is all around us. Don't hear it right now, but here we are. So welcome. 2 weeks in a row, guys. I don't really necessarily plan to do it every other week. It's just that's kind of how it works out. I don't plan too far in advance. Sort of like after one ends, I kind of reach out to someone to plan the next one, and it's generally about 2 weeks. But this one came together quickly, so fantastic for everyone. So this isn't Zoom. I can't see who is attending, but I can see the chat. So let's take roll call. I see some familiar names. Last week I mentioned using this new dashboard thing for the first time, and I had a panic scramble at the very end, right before we went live, because I couldn't figure out how to make it live after I hit start streaming in OBS. So Sake, you remember that, you were there. This time, after I hit start streaming and it connects to YouTube, I get a pop-up in YouTube that says, looks like you're ready to live stream. Click this button. That would have been helpful before. So maybe that was, maybe they saw my stream and they added that feature. Probably not. So welcome everybody. It's Friday again. I want to see Jasper's in the chat. Welcome, Jasper. Sake and Betty and Phil and I had a chat this week, actually. Last week I mentioned net data. He reached out. We had a chat. So we'll try to set something up in the future and have Phil on and talk about the net data tool. It makes me feel like probably beginners feel with Wireshark. You open it up and it's like, oh, there's so much to look at. Where do I go? What do I click on? So beginner's mindset, start simple, kind of playing around with the free version. Very interesting. So we'll go into that. What else? Well, it's only been a week, guys. We keep chugging along. I mentioned I'm trying to find a new place to go, and started looking at some properties here in San Francisco. And you have to schedule one-on-one time. I'm sure it's tough for the agencies who are managing the properties, because they have to schedule every single person 10-minute blocks. Show up at your time. Don't be too early. Don't be too late. Except for one guy, just said, yeah, 3 o'clock. I said, okay. I'd already looked at a couple. I knew what to expect. Well, there was 20 people just scattered around outside this house on the sidewalk, all looking at each other like, what is this, an open house? We know we can't all go in together. The guy would yell down from the window, okay, whoever's next. And he would rush you through. It was a disaster. So that's what I'm doing in my spare time, is looking for a new place to live and getting ready to move, hopefully in the near future. It's really annoying. Let's see, shirt today. We'll ask our guest to show his shirt when he joins. I believe this one is Europe. Yep, that's for sure. Portugal. Was it the first year in Portugal? No, this is not Portugal. This is Austria, Vienna. That's right. My bad. Sorry if Roland's here. Yes, that's right. That was a very beautiful city. I got to walk around that place a bit. Yeah, 18. I think this may run out of the shirts I can wear for the live stream. I've got a 3 or 4 more, but they fit a previous version and not the current version of Carrie. So they'll have to hopefully one day make an appearance. So we'll get started. We got a lot to talk about with our esteemed guest. I want to tell just a quick little story that leads in here. When I got my first job as a student was a student sysadmin, right, for the electrical and computer engineering department. And I got the job. I didn't have any real world experience, but I was a computer science student. So, and the guy was like, well, I got 2 spots. You can do Windows or you can do Unix. And I was like, oh, I know a little bit about Unix. That sounds interesting. And that just flip of the coin decision has basically created the trajectory of my life since then, because I went on to do a lot more of system and network administration on the Linux Unix side. A while much later, we hired a new guy, younger, and super tall. I met him, and the boss goes, "Hey, this is John. You know, he'll be starting and helping out around doing this and that." And so we would go around and, you know, help solve problems for the professor's computers and go image the labs and all that good stuff. And I knew in his email his name was Jan, but he was John. And then I don't know how many months in, we're in the professor's office. He just kind of mentions to me, he's like, "Hey, by the way, my name is Jan." I was like, "What?" I thought he's like, "Yeah, it's you know, Michael introduced me to you as John." I just didn't say anything, and this was months later. So I say that because my guest today, we're gonna have to talk about how you pronounce a J. My guest is Jasper Bongertz, hailing from Germany, well known around the Sharkfest community, presenting there for quite some time. He's made tools, he does things with code. So we're going to get into lots of things, packets. So please welcome Jasper. And we are here. Hello, sir. Look.
Hello,
look
everyone.
Out behind you. Look out. Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So, what's up with?
Betty told me to get a better background, so I hope Betty approves.
Yes, that is terrifying. All right, so I asked Saki about his name. You know, I assume in Germany, people call you Jasper.
Yeah, they do.
And
yes. But I don't really care if you call me Jasper or. I mean, I've heard it all now.
Sure. Well, see, that's how you were introduced to me. So, you know.
Yeah. I think Hansang makes it a sport to pronounce it as German as possible, which is very nice of him. I didn't require it, but he wants to.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm fine either way. I mean, some people even call me Jay sometimes. I was known for that during civil service. It works, so everything's good.
Yeah.
My audio is cracking.
Yeah, your audio sounds okay to me. I know the video's a little choppy. The video is choppy for sure. There's not, but the audio sounds okay from my end.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not much we can do about it, I don't think. Unless you.
I mean, I'm streaming to you, and you're streaming it to everybody else, so if it's fine on your side.
Yeah.
We need to capture packets on your end, I think.
Lots of choppiness. The audio sounds like the video. That's interesting. So, no, if I turn off your video just to see if the audio gets better,
Let's try that.
I think it might. Let's try it. I gotta turn on. Yeah. Let's just see what happens. Let's troubleshoot live. Let's troubleshoot live.
Troubleshoot YouTube. It's not that hard.
Okay, I've turned his video off.
My voice is clipping.
And now the audio. I think I'm just getting audio.
Okay, so
do some talking.
I'm doing some talking. So the chat needs.
Oh, it's better.
Much better.
Well,
what's going on? That is strange.
Well, I'm sorry.
Really strange.
I'm gonna turn it back on. Just you know what? Let's just make sure. I'm gonna turn it back on. Stand by. Whoops.
No, I'm not on Wi-Fi, Sake.
Okay.
This is a gigabit link.
How does that sound?
Test 1 2 1 2. It's probably going to be choppy again.
It's back. Okay.
Yep, it's back.
Well, everyone's just going to have to look at me.
Yeah. No, it's my ISP then. Maybe I don't know. Or you? Maybe.
I don't know. Like, it's not choppy to me, so I don't know why it would do that. This is a first. This is all right. So let's
Well, turn off the video then. I just show you my shirt real quick.
Yeah, please.
Maybe. So it's hard to do this right if you can't see what you're doing. So that's the US 18 conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay.
And I brought my mug.
All right, you've got your mug. Yes. Okay, so I've killed your video.
My widow's dead.
What I will do is, I mean, just 1 second. Add new image. I'm gonna grab an image, the screenshot I took of you, and we'll at least put the picture up.
Yeah. Like a phone interview.
Yeah. All right, let's bring it to the front. Oh wait, no, that's okay. Well, like, if they can't see you, then they're not allowed to see me, right? So how about that? Isn't that wonderful? How's that, everyone?
Okay, so now it's a radio show.
Okay, let's get into it. Maybe, hopefully, I hope we'll be able to share screen and they'll be able to hear you. If not, that will be a problem. Oh, I wonder if... Hey, stop sharing your screen, because I am receiving that.
I'll stop sharing. As soon as I find the button, I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
Okay, we're going to try again.
Now without screen sharing.
Okay, let's try that. Does that sound better? It looks
Can
better
you
to me.
understand me better
It looks
now?
better to me.
Maybe it's the screen share that's killing us.
We got one primo. Does that mean it's good?
No, that was before.
All right, let's get to work, folks. How are we doing?
How are we doing? It's choppy again.
Okay. Fair enough.
You off. That's fine. I mean, they can still see you. That's fine too.
Here's what I'm doing. Like this. Ta-da! Okay. So we are... Yeah?
Test. Can you hear me now? The doctors are just doing that on purpose. No, Roland, we don't try to do that on purpose.
Okay. All right, so hopefully this is better because I've turned your video off. We're just getting audio. All right. Okay, so now that we've got that sorted as best we can, let's get into Jasper. So you, like I said, you've been in the community for a while. You present at Sharkfest. You're well known. You do packets for a living. What did you study in school? What was your intro? What hooked you into this packet life?
Well, I didn't start the packet life right away. That only started in 2003. When I left school in 1991, because I'm a bit older now, I started in computer games. And some people already know, but I started as a game tester. And game testing sounds like a very wonderful job, but it isn't, because you're not playing for fun, you're playing to test things. And you have to replay things over and over again, even if you don't want to, just to make sure that they work. So if you're ever... Well, the worst thing I did was playing Turrican, which is a game maybe some people know. It's a German shoot 'em up. And it's I had to move from Amiga to C64 down to Sinclair ZX Spectrum, which was black and white or black and monochrome somehow. So it got worse and worse, and it was really annoying. So game testing is not much fun. But at some point I found out that I did understand English okay-ish, school English basically. And my main point was that I had some skills in Dungeons and Dragons stuff, so I knew these role paper games. And they were having games coming in from the US, from TSR, Pool of Radiance and all these, and they needed somebody to translate it. I have the Beholder 2, and all the LucasArts games. So at some point, they made me a translator for these games. So I translated, for example, the X-Wing game by LucasArts. I made the German version. That was probably the coolest. And Comanche and some others.
Yeah. X-Wing was great.
And after that, at some point, I mean, you can stay in the gaming industry forever, but that wasn't really my plan. So I moved on, and through guy I was at the university with, I went into the database consultant business. So I did databases for a couple of years. And then in 2003, after going back to gaming again for a short while, I became a sniffer sales engineer, sort of, for a reseller. And I still remember the first meeting about the sniffer business. They were showing Sniffer Pro, and I had no idea what was going on. It was just packets and filters. And I mean, clicking a filter in Sniffer Pro takes like minutes instead of just writing something into the filter bar in Wireshark. But yeah, that's how I started. And then I was asked to do trainings, and I had to troubleshoot issues that people had with the sniffer when they were running it. And at some point, I mean, there were customers calling me, telling me, hey, we bought the sniffer laptop version from you, and we have a problem with our network. So I'm like, yeah, then do something about it. And they're like, yeah, we have the sniffer, but nobody knows how to use it. Can you come over? And you don't need to bring one. We have one. So that's how I got into the troubleshooting as a service kind of business, which is apparently not that common. I don't know that many people who do that for various customers. Most troubleshooters I know, except Sake, are doing that for their own company or for their own enterprise or whatever. And not that many are on a case-to-case basis. Chris Greer does it too. So these two, and probably Mark Pinaki. So it's a handful. And Betty, Betty, don't hit me. Of course you do too. But it's something where you run into different situations all the time. And one thing I learned is that if you let people capture the packets for you and you have to analyze them, it's usually really difficult to get good capture quality because they capture whatever, but not what you needed to have. So I end up mostly doing my own captures because otherwise you cannot really depend on what they're giving you. I mean, I was in Airbus for 6 years, Airbus cybersecurity, and we had captures where the quality was like, I deleted the traces right away because they were good for nothing. It was just...
Yes, definitely been there. Definitely been there. Well, I mean, it sounds like the only thing consistent that we've heard from folks is that the path to packet head, there is no consistency. You know, I mean, everyone has a different path to where we are right now. So that's beyond just the Wireshark community. I mean, you're obviously involved in a much bigger world. What other kinds of things are you involved in that you have interest in, that you contribute to?
Well, right now, I mean, my job is more security than it is troubleshooting now. I do the occasional troubleshoot, and I did that during my time at Airbus Cybersecurity as well. But usually it's more like cybersecurity stuff, meaning security operations center, doing network security monitoring, reading packets to find attack vectors and bad things happening. I also do a lot of general incident response and incident response consulting. So right now I'm working 2 or 3 incident response cases at the same time where people had been hit by ransomware and other things, and trying to find a way for them to deal with it.
Right. Well, so network forensics. That sounds like something that you're definitely involved in and do for your job. Walk us through, like, what is that? How is that similar or different from troubleshooting packets? You know, what is the process like? What are the tools like?
It's a bit different because you're more interested in finding things that shouldn't be there, while in troubleshooting you usually try to find things that should be there and misbehave. At least from my perspective. It's a lot about trying to find patterns, for example, trying to find command and control server traffic. I had one case that started on the 27th of December last year, and we found the command and control communication within a couple of minutes because we knew that a system connecting to an outside IP every 10 seconds just connecting and breaking down the connection again, connecting, breaking down the connection again. And we captured on the internet uplink, which we usually do. And we saw it because it had so many connection establishments that didn't do anything. And they had some fishy crypto going on in there. And at some point it was like, yeah, this is their command and control server. So that's what you try to find usually. And you try to find within the network lateral movement. So you want to see where the bad guys are moving from one system to the next and try to find where the initial point of breach was. Because in a ransomware, the common anxiety is that if you either restore from backup because you have one, so people do offline backups, please, because otherwise you are going to pay or shut down your business. Well, no, I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
No, it sounds like the end goal, or what you're trying to accomplish is different, but the same kind of mindset of curiosity, following this trail because what does this mean? This looks weird. Identifying patterns, and then also knowing what is normal and what's not. Like you learn to sort of filter out the things that are just normal. So it's the same kind of skill set, just applied in a different context with different patterns, and is what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, my biggest challenge is that I can't use my main skill in troubleshooting, which is TCP analysis. That is not really relevant to anything in forensics, except for reconstructing payloads. If you need to reconstruct payloads, which can happen, then it is good to know how it works and how to get the payloads. So I sometimes write custom tools to do exactly that, because I had one case where somebody was dumping packets to disk, but everything except payload packets was missing. So I didn't have any SYN, SYNAC, ACK, no ACK packets, no FIN, no reset, no nothing. It was just the packets with payload. And they were oversized. They were up to 64K in size. The acknowledgement number was always 0, and other things that were basically broken. And when they tried to, and this was the customer, and when they tried to reassemble this stuff, all the tools that tried, like Bro, Zeek, whatever, it would just not reconstruct the content because it was too broken. So I wrote a custom tool to do that.
All right, we got a question from Robert about.
Yeah, I see it in the chat.
What mistakes? Yes, I mean, people may or may not see the chat, but you said that you need to throw away captures from clients because they're useless. What mistakes do you see clients making?
Yeah, the most common one, the one that leads to the point where I throw away the capture, is if I can tell immediately that the problem communication isn't in the capture. So if somebody tells me this is the server, this is the client, they're talking to each other, they're having a problem, the first thing I do usually is I check, do I have these two IP addresses talking to each other? Right. If I don't, then probably somebody captured on the wrong switch, or the span port was not set correctly. So the first thing you should do is always verify that you got the communication in the trace. And that's what I do when I set up a capture. I do a test capture, and I see if I try to find the IP addresses that I expect to be there, like IP ranges. So I know I should be seeing 192.168 or 10 dot something, and I see 172. I'm like, this looks like it's not correct. That is one of the things. And the other one is, very often people capture on systems that are part of the problem. So they capture on a firewall which is in the path, or they capture on a load balancer, or they capture on the client, or they capture on the server. You can do that, and sometimes it's your only option. So it's something you need to carefully think about. But it's always better to have a independent system doing the capture on a span port, on a tap. So if you want to go crazy exact, go with a tap and a FPGA-based capture card. Very often you can't afford that. So you need to know which limitations you have for the way that you're going to capture.
Right. Right. I saw something interesting just the other day. Someone asked me to look at a thing, and they did a span port to like a laptop. And there was the laptop they were using, I think it was Linux, and it was doing like receive side coalescing. So it was like, oh well, these are useless. You got to turn that off because now we're not seeing what's on the wire. I just want to make note that I think we have our first maybe spam bot or something in the chat, and I feel like
we do.
I think we've really reached a milestone here for these live streams. If we have someone coming in and dropping, I don't know what that is. Is it QAnon nonsense? I don't know how to kick people out. Probably can't, but I would if I could. So yeah, and the other thing that sometimes if they say, hey, the problem happened at this time, and the captures don't come anywhere close to covering that time period, it's like, all right.
That is a classic as well.
Yeah. So, Sharkfest. What kinds of things are you normally talking about at Sharkfest?
Sometimes I do have too many talks. I think my biggest Sharkfest was when I had 6 of them. That was way too much, and I had to recover from that physically for a week or 2 afterwards. Usually I try to do things that are different from before. So I try to find interesting things that haven't been covered by other people. So sometimes we run into the problem that too many people want to do the same thing. Typically talking about TCP analysis. So I try to find other things that haven't been covered or have not been covered for quite some time. So I did something on alternative tools like Bro, Moloch, things like this, or packet anonymization, of course, because that is very important for a lot of people, especially presenters. So that is one of my main topics, and usually I did whatever Janice was asking me to do. My submissions to Sharkfest are probably a bit different, or have been different from everybody else, because I didn't send in talk outlines anymore. It was more like Janice telling me like, hey, you got 4 slots, do something. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and then I did that.
What are you going to do this year?
I only have the packet doctors this year. I'm not going to do a talk on my own, and the reason for that is actually quite simple. I'm doing that because I'm helping with the organization of Sharkfest. I'm working with Sherry to get things organized, together with Sake, with Betty, and with Chris, who are all doing a training, which is great. And I'm trying to help with the technical backgrounds, finding the solution how to do the conference technically. I did a lot of the evaluation of the talk submittals because Sherry, it's not her primary expertise. She's excellent in running events like this, but of course she doesn't read packets and Wiresharks. So somebody needs to look at the proposals and see if it's something that we want to have or not. So that's what I did for this Sharkfest.
Just real quick, I had an idea. I'm going to try to bring your video back and change the audio source as we wrap up this part and go to the screen share. But let's try it. I'm going to bring your video back. I'm going to mute this audio and keep the audio that I currently have. Does this work? Does this sound better?
I have to say something first, I think. So let's see what the chat says.
Yeah, give us the word,
Is this
chat.
better? Hello? Can you hear me, or am I a robot again? Typing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
you did something
I'm
right
I'm hearing
now.
the desktop audio.
Okay.
I think, and so that's fine. So that's what I'm sending to OBS, and I'm muting the input coming from Skype. Okay. Well, I wish we would have done that sooner, but here we are. Okay.
Well,
so
we learned something. Great.
Yeah. This is what life is all about. You live and you learn. So what brings you back year after year to Sharkfest?
A couple of things. First of all, my friends are there. So you are there, Sake is there, Betty's there, Hansang is there. I could like list names like crazy. There was one time 2 years ago where I knew every single speaker on the agenda already. So it's for me, it's getting back with normal people and hanging out and having fun and talking packets where everybody else would look at us like,
Yeah.
what are you even talking about? So TCP Synflex and
Yeah, no,
whatnot.
yes, like-minded,
Yeah.
like-minded
So
individuals. Any
it,
stories you want to share?
oh yeah, I have plenty of stories. I mean, there's Betty who's always bringing something to Sharkfest to gift to me. So I have this. Let's see if I can get it from the wall where it's without falling down. I got this shark pin. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I got mugs, glasses from her, and she brings a lot of cool stuff. I always love seeing all the people from the US because not all of them can make it to the European Sharkfests all the time, and I just like being there and having fun and talking packets and yeah, just hanging out in the pool area afterwards with the core developers and doing crazy stuff. So yeah,
Right.
that's why.
All right. Well, shall we? So one of the things that we've talked about, I think last week, is the packet doctors. There's packet challenges. Sake talked about the one that he made. There's been other types of challenges, and I think you've got one from Europe last year that everyone got wrong but Vlad.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Only Vladimir got it right.
Yeah. So you wanna just take a shot and see if this is gonna work?
Yeah. Let's try a screen share again.
Screen, and I may need to fiddle with the audio for a second, but maybe we'll get this figured out.
Let's see.
All right, so I'm going to switch to here.
Well, Sake, don't feel ashamed because it was a really mean one. I chose this one to show a lot of people that they need to also fiddle with their Wireshark settings. It was a really hard trace, so I had the advantage of having seen it before. So
right.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
can you still hear me, everybody?
I think so. I think we probably would have had some screams by now, or maybe QAnon would have said something.
All right. So let's try the PDF first, if I can find it. So I have this one here. Try it yourself. Let's make that bigger. So this do-it-yourself one, that was the one that everybody got wrong except for Vladimir. But I knew that beforehand because Vladimir always gets everything right. So this is a real-life case that I troubleshot for the person who had the problem. So I was familiar with it and I found it really cool. So there are some questions that you should answer. Some of them are quite easy, I think. Some of them are really hard. And the hardest one, and the one that everybody got wrong except, well, Vlad, is number 5. Why does the transmission of TCP data from 192 fail?
Right.
A lot of people had ideas about it, but not everybody had the right ideas. So maybe we should take a look and see what it does.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this is the trace that this is how it looks like if you open up in Wireshark in default configuration. And one of the things that really annoy me is this red on black, because I really don't like colored backgrounds.
Yeah.
So it should give you an idea that something is going wrong, but it looks so bad that usually my rule would apply that if it looks this bad, it's probably just a bad capture. But this is a real capture. It is this bad. So to answer the question of Robert, you can get the Pcap on my blog. So
oh yeah, we didn't do it ahead of time, but we'll get some links put in the description of the video.
Yeah. If you want to get it right now, it's just if you open my blog here, there's this Sharkfest 2019 EU Packet Challenge, and it has the PDF and the zip.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so I need to get this out of the way.
Sorry for the distract.
No, it's fine.
I don't know
I
if
don't
they
know.
can hear it, but you can hear it.
Yeah, okay. Vladimir just wrote in the chat that he did it wrong the first time and then rethought it over the night. So yeah, it's always good to take some time
Yeah.
off.
Sleep
I
on it.
have to say I have the great advantage, or I had the great advantage all my packet life, that I have one or two colleagues who are really good at network analysis as well. So we often bounce problems and results with each other, and only if everybody agrees we're sure like this is okay. Usually the default reaction of everybody in the team was to say, no, you have it wrong, and then you have to prove that you're right. So that makes you really focus on your argumentation. So what we have here is a communication that isn't working, and you can see that there's a three-way handshake, and then some things are happening, and at some point communication just doesn't seem to work. So
Right.
we have retransmissions all the time. And one of the things that we had in the questions is, let's just go back here. What is the largest segment size that will work for both client and server? If you take a look at the maximum segment size, you see the client says 1460. That's normal.
Right.
And the other one says 700. And that is the thing that threw a lot of people off, because
Oh wait, no,
down
it
here,
says 536.
536. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. That's how we read packets. Sometimes we get into the wrong spot as well. People always believe that you and me and Saka and Hansang, Betty, Chris, we look at a trace and we see immediately what is wrong. No, that's not true. We get traces and we spend like hours looking at things, trying to figure things out, and then at some point get to the real interesting stuff. So we also are stuck a lot. So in this case, yeah, it is maximum segment size 1460 and 536. So a lot of people got confused by that, because you see that there's bigger packets here. Usually what they should do is they should go and not send anything larger than what their segment size is, because the segment size tells you there's a piece of pipe between us where only so much can go through. And if you send more, you usually get it dropped, or you get fragmentation needed packets back, stuff like this. So it's always a good idea to actually look at the MSS and make sure that you're not sending more than that. So the second thing is, where was the capture taken? Yeah, for this kind of thing, you need to gather some information about timings. So right now you can see the timing here. It's from the client to the server, that is like 100, wait, let me just read this, 1.5 milliseconds. And back it's just 1.7, and this is the relative time. So it's much quicker coming back than, well, going there. Right. So I would say we're very close to the client. So this takes a while from SYN to SYN-ACK, which means it has to travel to the server, travel back. That takes a while. And then when I send out my own ACK to the SYN-ACK, it's really fast. So I'm pretty close. I'm very close to the client.
Right. All about perspective.
Yeah. What often helps is if you get this kind of information from the person who gives you the trace, unless you've done the capture yourself. But in this case, of course, nobody had taken this trace, and it's something to figure out. So if you're looking at it, there are telltale signs when the capture is taken locally. Usually you have broken checksums, you have oversized packets, stuff like this. And this isn't happening in this trace. Or maybe it is. We just don't know right now, because Wireshark in the default installation doesn't check checksums. Right. It just won't check them, because people get confused all the time if they do local captures and the checksums are bad, so that the developers decided to turn that feature off. So the first thing I would do here in a case like this is turn on the TCP checksum validation. I took the shortcut of right-clicking on the transmission control protocol header, and then go into the pop-up menu and use protocol preferences, validate TCP checksum if possible. And that is a funny thing, because the first time I did that at Sharkfest, Hansang was sitting in my audience, and I did it real quick because I was assuming most people know this. And then Hansang was like, wait, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And like, really, Hansang, you don't know? I mean, you're one of the best analysts I know, and I'm looking up to you. So how is it possible you don't know?
And he's not here to defend himself.
He's not here to defend himself, but it's the same for every one of us.
Absolutely.
We don't know everything.
Absolutely.
So we always learn new things. And I've spoken to a lot of very good analysts who are asking me a question about TCP when I'm like, they know TCP at least as good as I do. Why is he asking me? But it's the normal way of things at Sharkfest. So people are really good with that kind of thing. Yeah. So let's turn it on. And now the picture is a quite different one. And I think that is the one where a lot of people at Sharkfest, they didn't do this. So they didn't see the checksum is broken. Yeah. So yeah, now we could argue that maybe the checksum is so broken from 192.168.0.1 that probably he was capturing on his own machine. For this kind of thing, I usually try to look at the checksum of the IP header, and you see it's 0. So I want to know, is it always 0? Because, well, IP, it's also disabled, but I can still see it's 0. It shouldn't be 0. Usually it's really it's not that common that it is 0. So I could try to find out if it's always 0. And the quickest way to do that is just drop a column here.
Oh, drag and drop.
But now we see it's 0, it's 0, it's 0, but we need to make sure, well, there's some other numbers, but this is always the other one. So let's do this one. So drag and drop the IP from the source column to the this one, and you can all thank Roland for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
That's pretty cool. So now we know, okay, for this guy, the checksum is always 0. So we're pretty sure that, and the checksum is also broken for TCP every single time. So it's really, really a good idea to argue that this is taken on the PC running with the IP 192.168.0.1.
Right.
So I would say this is quite conclusive, and now I can remove this again. I don't need it anymore. So this is for the first, for the second one. I would say it's taken on client local. Mm-hmm. I know for sure it was taken on the client local because I know the guy told me. So initial round trip time, that is the easiest thing since a couple of years now, because it's written into the packets. If you check the third packet of the handshake, for example, you can go down to the sequence analysis, and it will tell you the IRTT initial round trip time is 0.0017 whatever. You could also do it yourself by looking at the relative time and reading the number here. This only works if your connection starts with the first packet in the trace. Otherwise, you need to set a time reference to make it a 0 point. And of course, it should be filtered on that connection. Otherwise, you get confused all the time. So that is really easy too. So the next one, oh, Roland says you're welcome. Yeah. How many router hops are between client and server? That is one that is also very, very nice, because you needed to apply some common sense to your answers here. If you're looking at the first packet, I think it's this one, the SYN. For this, you need to know that most TCP stacks or most stacks, network stacks, use very specific numbers for their TTL. The TTL is reduced by 1 for each router that the packet travels. So I'm seeing here a TTL of 128, which is the normal standard starting TTL of a Windows PC. Mm-hmm. So that is another check mark for, hey, this is probably taken very close to the client, if not locally. So 128 means there's no hop between us and this capture, or between the capture and the originating system. So now let's take a look at the other one. Somehow my mouse doesn't do it right. So this one says time to live 100. And 100 is a bad number. It's confusing because, TTL starts either at 255, 128, or 64. Right. So it can't start at 64 because it's higher than that. So it basically can't have started at that. So the next one that we usually know is 128, right? So usually we would say this is 28 hops because from 128 to 100 takes 28 hops. Yep. Well, 28 hops is too much for a conversation like this, because if you take into consideration that you have IPs 192.168.0.1 and 192.168.0.2, they're in the same subnet.
Yeah.
Very, very, I'm very sure that they're in the same subnet because they're right next to each other. And that means if they're in the same subnet, how can there be so many hops between them? And you also see at least one of them in the MAC addresses, or if you look at the MAC addresses in the first and the second packet, you will see that they're the same pair.
Right.
One source and destination swapping, of course, but they're the same. So there's no router replacing the MAC address when he's routing something. So all of these hints should give you the idea that there's no hops between them, 0 hops. But a lot of people told me 28. And 28, if you think about it, is enough to go around the internet. I think somebody calculated that the shortest or the longest path between 2 IP addresses on the internet is no longer than 22 or 23 hops, no matter where you're going. So 28 is just too much. So all those clues, it's like, okay, the answer to this one is the router hops are 0. So, and a lot of people, and still a lot of people got that one right. So the bad thing is this one.
Here we go, the doozy.
The most common answer I got is that, well, the communication obviously doesn't work because it's retrying the same things over and over again. We see sequence 1, 1461, 2921, and then the retransmissions are 1, 1461. So this is this one, this one is this one. So it keeps doing it all over again, and we see the pattern repeating. And a lot of people said, well, first of all, this is because the MSS, this guy can only accept 536. But no, that's not it. It will still accept the packet. It just has a strange MSS set, and it will just receive it because, as we established, there's no routing hops between them. There's no device that could have an MTU that is so low that this packet won't go through. It's just from Ethernet NIC to Ethernet NIC. And so the MSS is not the problem. The other thing is that people said, well, it's because of the broken checksums, because some people turned their checksum or had it turned on, and they were like, yeah, the checksum is broken. It will not accept the packet. And that's why it doesn't go through, or that's why it doesn't work. It must be a problem with the checksums. Well, that's partially correct, but the problem is this one here. It's also coming from 192.168.0.2, and as you can see, this checksum is correct. So it's not a capture problem where the checksums are always broken. It's not always the checksum broken for every packet, it's just for some packets. And it's really a bit confusing looking at this, but at some point, I think a couple of people realized, or at least Vlad did at that point, that there must be something else. And well, the real problem is here that, the name of the trace is a giveaway, because do-it-yourself means somebody wrote their own TCP stack for a
which answers the TTL question.
System. Well, it's up here. No? I said a developer programmed a microcontroller to send data via TCP. So he was programming his own microcontroller, and he got a couple of things wrong. First of all, he got the wrong MSS. He also got a strange window size of 700. He did the strange 100 number because he thought it would be a great TTL to start with. So
nice round number.
It's a nice round number for a human, but not for a system that is working with a power of 2. So 100 is a man-made or woman-made number, and I was debugging this with him actually on ask.wireshark.org. He was posting the question, and I was debugging it. And at some point, I told him, well, your checksums for some packets are broken, but not all of them. So, and we know there's no router in between or router. It must be something with the checksums. And the solution to all of this is that, yes, he got the checksum calculation incorrect. He programmed checksum calculation himself, but he only did it for the first 1,000 bytes. So if a packet is longer than 1,000 bytes, he didn't care about the additional bytes and just wrote the checksum for the first 1,000 bytes into the packet, which meant it's always wrong as soon as the packet is bigger than 1,000 bytes. So this is why a packet with 7, 8, 9 bytes works, but the big ones above 1,000 bytes don't. Right. So yeah, that's the reason why it's broken. So somebody is creating his own TCP stack. And this is one of the cases where I realized that we ironed out so many problems in TCP stacks that we had back in the 90s and 80s and before that. Yeah. Everything is fine now if you're using a standard off-the-shelf OS like Windows, Linux, Solaris, whatever. Right. They're not doing this crazy stuff. But people are using IoT devices, they're programming their own microcontrollers now, and they're stumbling across the same things over again. Yeah. So sometimes you just need to realize that, yeah, they're going back in time and doing their old mistakes again and again.
Was this the only data point in the capture that shows packets, 1460 versus 735? That's the pattern that breaks is the data length. Like, are there other data links that give you, because that's really only 2 data points. So to make that connection is, that's honestly, it's a guess, but it's a good guess. I wonder if there's like other packets of different sizes, so you can kind of hone in where the helps you color in the issue.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the SYNAC packet, but that's 0 length. So,
right.
I agree. It's not a very clear trace, and it's not pointing or giving you many hints for this kind of thing. But to be honest, I have seen the packet challenges that Laura Chappell has done at Sharkfest, and they were so simple that or at least I thought they were simple. Many people would probably disagree. But I wanted to make it a challenge so that people really have to think about what is going on and not making it like a grinding kind of task. I want to make it a thinking task. And I also want people to improve their Wireshark setup and do other settings. For example, this is the default Wireshark profile that I never use. I only use it to present it to people to tell them that this is how it looks like when you're not configuring your Wireshark. My own one looks like this. So for me, this is much clearer, and I can work with it much easier. And I have things turned on and things turned off that I need and that I want. And Betty is going to talk about profiles at Sharkfest. So if you want to learn about it, go see her class. I have not that many of them right now. I have one that is only for layer 4. Because sometimes you have this HTTP traces and you don't want to see the GET requests and GET replies and whatever. So I just disable all the protocols that are not layer 4 and below. So it looks like this. So this is more like a troubleshooting for TCP kind of setup. Some people will get mad at me because my time columns are on the right, and they're used to having them on the left. But as I said, I was a sniffer sales engineer, and they had them on the right. This is why. And I usually get into a friendly banter with Hansang and other people.
I mean, no, it's clearly wrong, but whatever works for you.
Yeah, it's you need to do it for what works for you.
It's a European thing. It's on the right. Yeah.
No, it's not even that. It's a because Landy, he's also mad at me if I do this because he has it on the left. Yeah. So I'm pretty good now at using the default one, and I can read it quite well, but I'm not as fast as with my own setup, of course. So you always need to set up your Wireshark in a way that it works for you the best. That
Absolutely.
is important.
So question. So his answer, did Vlad specifically say checksums are broken for packets over 1,000 bytes, or just checksums are broken over packets for over a certain size?
I can't remember exactly because after the ceremony, we returned the answer sheets to the persons. I think he got it right in reasoning, saying there must be something wrong with the checksum calculation of this node, and I think that was what it. I mean, he could look it up, and if you're going to have him on the stream, you can ask him if he can hold it into the camera. I don't know.
Here's the proof. I mean, probably he just said, packets over a certain size have checksum errors, and packets under a certain size don't. I mean, that conclusion you could potentially come to. I don't know that there's enough different packet size data points, but it's certainly the best conclusion you have with the data. So yeah, absolutely, it's a fantastic exercise to really get your noodle going. So one thing we did skip over, and I want to mention to folks before we maybe just flip it over for wrap up and Q&A is, I saw in your capture there, right there, payload removed by TraceWrangler, and I wanted to mention, something people who do this kind of work and have need for tools or functionality that doesn't exist, if you have the skill set, whether you're a coder or a very intelligent copy and paster.
We all do that. I do that all the time.
So tell us about TraceWrangler.
Yeah, so TraceWrangler started because I was so annoyed with the tools that were out there to anonymize Pcap files. I mean, everybody who's presented at Sharkfest had to anonymize their Pcaps at some point, more or less. And there's good ways and bad ways. And I was using, I think, BitTwisty and TCP Rewrite because not both tools could do all I needed. So I had to run like 10 command lines just to replace 2 IP addresses consistently. And that was so annoying. And the other thing is that they only worked with Pcap, not Pcap-NG. And a little known fact, apart from the people who had been at that Sharkfest closing ceremony, is that I'm probably responsible for Wireshark using Pcap-NG as a default format now, because I told the room that if Wireshark doesn't start using Pcap-NG, nobody will, because Wireshark is the gold standard for packet capture analysis. So that was the time when it was switched over. And I wanted to have a tool that is able to read and write Pcap-NG and anonymize it in a very easy way. So I started writing it in 2012, and I think I presented it for the first time at Sharkfest in 2013. The results of that were that now at every Sharkfest, the presenters come to me when they have a problem with it or need something fixed or changed or implemented, sometimes an hour before the presentation, because nobody sanitizes their trace files, like nobody writes their slides before their talk is about to start.
I'm feeling very attacked right now. I just want you to know.
No, it's fine. I mean, Saka was doing that at some point, I think. Everybody has done it, so I'm not... It's fine. I mean, I like the challenge, and I try to get things fixed as much as possible. So the immediate result of that was when I presented this one at Sharkfest 2013, I think, was that Hansang gave me a $100 Amazon bonus thingy, which I turned into books about networks, of course. I have one very obscure one that explains how switches and routers do internal processing of packets, which is the most strange book I think I ever read about networks. I didn't read it really. I skimmed through it like we do. And the other one is Betty. And Betty, basically, whenever I'm at Sharkfest, I don't have to pay for any kind of drink because she covers it. So people are really happy about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
There
try
you
to
go.
improve it. It's really hard to go beyond layer 4
Right,
because
right,
everything is pretty much standardized until layer 4. But after that, you have port numbers, and everything can run on any kind of port number. And the worst thing that also got into my way already is reassembly stuff.
hmm
So if you need
yeah,
to, for example, sanitize any kind of payload that is split across packets, you need to reassemble it first, sanitize it, and then cut it into packets again at the same location, the same size. It must look as identical as
right,
possible because
right.
otherwise the analysis may take a wrong turn or something. So that is really it's a hard problem to solve, and I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah,
So
no, understandable. I mean, I think we don't have to spend much time on this, but I know you've talked about like a TCP investigator that you're writing, a TCP analysis type
yeah,
engine that I'm sure you have the same types of really challenging problems that you've come up against to try and, under sort through PCAPs.
yeah. TCP Investigator is just a command line tool right now that writes a results file to see to comma separated, and it's not. It can now analyze TCP flows beginning and ending, and it can track if there's a gap in between. And
hmm
that alone are, I think I have probably 100 symptoms right now, or something like that,
Okay.
just for TCP session setup and teardown and tracking gaps. I started writing the code to track sequence and acknowledge number behavior and sec edges and stuff like this. And I started rewriting it 3 times already because I always got myself into a corner where I couldn't get out of again. I think that is one of the main reasons that, as far as I know, there's no real good TCP expert system out there. At least I haven't seen any so far that can really analyze like a human analyst can,
Right.
because either people are good at programming or they're good at analyzing packets.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
it seems to be very hard to find somebody who can do both. Sake can probably do that, and a few others. But doing something like this, I think the worst case scenario is the TCP expert of Sniffer. I mean, it showed ridiculous symptoms all the time, like egg taking too long. It's like, what's that even supposed to mean? Or window size frozen. It's like, what? Why? Why
Yeah.
would I care? People are often, or programmers are often trying to figure out what would be a good symptom diagnosis or what might be helpful. But most of the time, I think the real analysts working with it would disagree, and they would say, "Hey, I don't
Yeah.
need this. I need something else completely." But it's so complicated that I can tell you how to program it.
Yeah.
So
No, that,
I,
yeah,
I
that makes
I
sense.
try to do that, but it's taking quite some time.
All right. Well, fantastic. We'll leave it here on the screen just in case. Want to give folks an opportunity for any Q&As. I think, we obviously have some experts in
Yeah.
the chat who have
I can
addressed.
I can tell Roland right now, of course, it's written in Delphi because I'm not a programmer. I use what I barely able to manage to use to write code. So I sometimes read the TCP code of Wireshark, but it's mind blowing all the time. So people keep telling me, "Hey, write stuff in C," but I would need like 10 years to be as good in C as I'm in Delphi right now. So I don't want to waste that time.
You know
That's
what?
basically I
Use
don't
the
do it.
tool that works for you.
Yeah.
Just want to, I don't, Teresa actually is not a bot. She said she thought we were talking about Hollywood and MK Ultra at the beginning of this. I don't know where that comes from. I think maybe you're seeing things you want to see, which sounds like a conspiracy. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe MK Ultra is a real thing. I'm not trying to make light of anyone's trauma, but don't know how you got there from where we started.
I don't know. And they had a vote for if the time columns are on the right or on the left. So I think I'm
Oh,
pretty
okay.
much alone with my on the
You
right
know what? Stand
status.
alone, stand proud.
Yeah.
So Vlad did say he made the comment in his packet challenge is just checksums for packets over a certain size, which is I think the best conclusion you can come to
Yeah.
from that. Which is
Hmm.
obviously he's the only one that came to it. So
Yeah.
kudos. I think I those kind that you know something's there, but you're not quite seeing it yet. I think the only time I ever solved those is away from my computer, away from Wireshark, walking down the street, in the shower, laying
Yeah.
in bed. Those are when the answers come to those really
Oh yeah.
tricky.
I mean, I am debugging sometimes like this. So I had a crash in TraceWrangler, and I was really not getting any headway fixing it. So I walked to the store to get something to drink and something to eat. And I was walking to the store, and in the middle of the path, I was like, it is this code line, it is this problem, I need to fix this. I came back, and it was exactly that kind of thing. So very often it's good to take a break and just step away for it, just like you said. Yeah.
All right. Well, so where can people? Well, like I said, we'll put some links in the video just after this. But where can people find you if they want to have a chat about packets or follow you or all those good things?
Yep.
Oh,
sorry, I was just
me?
reading Sarkis. You have to repeat it.
Yeah. So if people want to follow you, reach out to you, talk to you, see what's going on, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, that is the good thing about my very unique German name, Jasper Bongertz. If you Google it, you will find only me in space and time. There's no, I can never blame anybody else on it, like John Smith or something. It's you're going to find me, and I'm on Twitter. I'm at PacketJ.
Packet Yay.
And Packet Yay. Like this, Packet Yay. And of course, blog.packetfoo.com. Well, actually, Jasper comes from a boat in the Dublin Irish Harbour. It was a boat of that name. My parents saw when they were thinking about a name, so I'm a boat, basically.
You're a boat.
And I'm fine. It's probably why I like sharks.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe my name was probably pretty unique, but I've Googled it over the years, and there was a Canadian race car driver with my exact same spelling and everything.
Okay.
Recently, someone was convicted of murder, so it's not trending in the right direction for when I Google my name. Anyway.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Well, so folks, go check out. We'll put his website. I already have links saved when people come to me especially about capture stuff, which I don't talk much about. Frankly, I don't have a ton of hands-on experience. My experience is people giving me the Pcaps and me looking at them. So you've got a capture playbook on your website. I point people to that all the time. So your website, the Sharkfest retrospective, search for your name. You've got tons of stuff on there. Probably great additions to your taking in some content, folks. So, well, thank you very much for taking your time out. Sorry for the challenges that we had at the beginning. We got it figured out, sort of. Well, we got to work around. We hadn't figured it out. We got to work around. And that's
We're improving all the time. We learn stuff.
Yeah. So we'll hang out in the chat just for a second, everyone. Thanks for joining again. I'll let you know. Don't have anything lined up right now for the next one, but we'll figure something out, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for inviting me, Gary. That was fun.